Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, Digital Media Relations Manager here in Chesterfield. Very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Now, it's not often that you get to talk to somebody who has the kind of experiences that this next guest has, somebody who I think has a lot to offer, not just in this particular, sort of topic area, but also about Chesterfield County as a whole, not just given the experiences that she's had here, but also the number of folks that she's worked with across her career. I'm very glad to welcome Mary Martin Selby, who is the Director of Human Resources here in Chesterfield County. Mary, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much, Brad. I'm really good.
I appreciate your time. Very much appreciate you being here. As I mentioned in my my little lofty intro there, I'm fascinated to get some of your points of view on a variety of different things as we work through this, because I can imagine that there are various folks throughout the organization who have been here a while, who've seen a bunch of stuff, but I bet you, pound for pound, nobody has seen the sort of changes that you've seen over your career. Before we dive into that, I always like to begin with background and give the listener a chance to get a sense of who they're hearing from and kind of get a feel for who somebody might be. So, Mary, tell me a little bit about your background and about sort of like what brought you to Chesterfield County and what were the steps that you took to sort of become the Director of HR?
Sure, happy to. So I'm from South Hill, Virginia. It's a little town on the North Carolina border.
I know exactly where it is because I'm from Emporia, so I know exactly.
Okay, neighbors.
Look at us, 58 born and raised.
That's right, yeah. So I came to Chesterfield back in the early 80s for college.
Okay.
I went to Virginia State University, got my bachelor's.
Okay.
And then I went to the University of Richmond and got my master's.
Okay.
And part of the undergraduate program was a required internship. My college advisor had worked in state and local government, had a lot of connections here in Chesterfield,
right.
and he recommended Chesterfield as a place to intern.
Okay.
So I interned here in the HR department many, many years ago during my junior year. And then after graduation, a few years working for the Virginia Employment Commission.
Okay.
A new HR analyst position came open in Chesterfield.
Okay.
So I applied for it.
Yeah.
And was offered the position, and I got it.
Yeah.
So I worked for the county for about 10 years.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to expand and find some other opportunities that might help grow my background. So I went to work for VCU and the VCU health system.
Okay.
Worked there for about 3 years, missed the county tremendously. And my old job came open as assistant director of HR, so I applied for it. They hired me back, and I came back and have been here ever since.
Okay.
In terms of the steps, I think you said the steps I took to become HR director, I don't think I consciously thought of what steps I needed.
It just sort of happened?
It just kind of happened. As a matter of fact, I would often tell county leadership here not to include me in any of their talent assessment exercises, which are great programs, don't get me wrong. But I was perfectly happy in the assistant director role. I was always taught, don't go after money, don't go after titles. Keep focused on doing the job that's before you.
Right.
To the best of your ability, and then all these other things will follow if it's meant to be. And so that was kind of my motto. Yeah. My dad used to say, work hard and always be willing to take on new tasks and those that nobody else wanted to do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so that was kind of my story.
Yeah.
So over the years, I've been fortunate to have developed some really good working relationships with county leadership and county employees. And I think because of those relationships, which are based on trust and teamwork, that's led me to the position I'm in now and made me comfortable in it because of the great teamwork we have here in Chesterfield.
Yeah. Before we dive too much into the weeds on this, I want to start kind of global and drill down a little bit.
Sure.
Help me understand what the director of HR does and give me your sort of point of view on why that position, and then maybe even HR in general, is so important for an organization like ours.
Wow, that's a really good question. So an HR director is responsible for working with the leadership of an organization to really establish policies, procedures for how you're going to manage and how you're going to treat the workforce, right? We say that they are our most valuable asset, and they are. So we work in HR to make sure that the employee's work life is complete in terms of compensation, benefits, leave, employee training, work culture, recruitment, retention, all of those things that are a part of an employee's experience. And as I told you before, Brad, I believe behind every great organization is a great HR department. And I truly mean that. If you have an HR department that cares about the workforce, it's going to come through, right, in the culture that you help create, which will also help to ensure that employees are well taken care of. If employees feel valued, they will stay. Your last question, trying to keep up. Why is HR so important? So in my opinion, your HR department must understand the business of the organization in order to be effective. And they have to listen to the workforce and then use that information to help advocate, for employees and their well-being. And leadership must be of the same mindset. They must sincerely value the work that employees do. And fortunately, and I know I've told you this before, we have that here in Chesterfield. So it kind of makes my job a little easier.
We've mentioned the word workforce a couple of times. We talked about sort of the people who are here. I think it's a good idea maybe for us to define that for the listener. What is the workforce here in Chesterfield government? And what can you tell me about the folks who are part of the group that you run? Like what when you look at the workforce, how would you define the workforce that's here in Chesterfield?
Oh, yeah. So when you think about the number of residents, we'll start there, that we have here in the county with over 380,000, we have a lean, mean fighting machine, right? We have about 4,600 full-time and part-time employees who work to provide local government services and programs. And our jobs range from public safety positions, those that most of our residents are aware of, police officers, firefighters, sheriff deputies, and the 911 dispatchers. But then we have a lot of other positions that you might not think of. You know, when you talk about finance and marketing, sales, we have mechanics, we have recreation specialists, librarians. I mean, the list just goes on and on. You name it, we probably have someone doing that job. So, yeah, it's a very wide array of positions. In terms of our workforce demographics, I think our goal has always been to be reflective of the community we serve. So our employees come from all walks of life in many areas of the world. Interestingly, our youngest employee is 18.
Oh, wow.
And our oldest is 82.
82, huh?
82.
Wow.
So our workforce truly represents the makeup of the county demographics. We believe that brings about a better connection and understanding of the needs of our residents. So we're real proud of that.
Absolutely. I know sometimes HR can kind of be viewed as an obstacle in a lot of situations, right? But I think it can be a department with a particular sort of customer service view. And I'm curious, how would you describe the gist of why people come and why they stay? What's the secret sauce to you about how we sort of make that happen for employees?
Wow, you have some really good questions, Brad.
It's literally what I do, Mary.
Well, HR definitely has a regulatory role in that we must ensure federal and state personnel laws are adhered to. We also have to make sure county policies and procedures are current and effective. And we have to make sure that employees have equal opportunities in the workplace. But the secret sauce, as you mentioned, is knowing how to balance that HR role as a regulator with our role as a workforce champion. The county has so many talented HR professionals that work in our HR department that understand that balance. So we're able to deliver on both fronts. You can absolutely be both the regulator and the customer service agent. And I think we have figured out how to do that here.
Now, customer service, I think that's, let me drill into that real quick. So for us in Constituent Media Services, we think of sort of the departments of the county as being our customers, and we serve the people of Chesterfield by serving the departments of Chesterfield, right? So for us, our customers are sort of both. is that also how you view the customer piece of this from the HR perspective? Who would you say your customers are, and how do you sort of serve the people of Chesterfield best in that role?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell department leaders all the time that our job in HR is to help you, the departments, get and keep the people you need to do your jobs, right? So that means that department leaders and county employees are HR's two primary customers.
Right.
And a good HR department, I believe, should take the lead in helping the organization create a great work environment in order to attract great talent, from competitive pay and leave benefits to a respectful work environment. Those things are very important. And that's what defines good customer service from an HR perspective.
Interesting. Now, given all of that, it's no wonder that Chesterfield is routinely awarded at the national, state, regional level for overall satisfaction from the workforce. I feel like I've written so many different news releases about, different awards from whether it's top workplaces or what have you. Why are things like those awards, why are those emblematic of this organization, in your opinion?
Yeah, the number of applicants nowadays looking for jobs is fewer than in the past, especially since COVID. And the number of great applicants looking for jobs is even more limited. So in order to attract great talent, you have to be a great employer, right? And your employees must actually vouch for you. They have to say it.
Right.
It's not enough for HR or leadership to say, hey, we're great, right? Your employees have to say it.
Right.
And that's why getting the Top Workplace Award is so critical to our recruitment efforts. And it's so cool because about 20 awards in now over the past 5 years, they are the result of employee feedback.
Right.
Independent third-party survey companies reach out to our employees. We provide them with the email addresses, and they ask them to respond back to them anonymously and share their feelings about why the county is a great employer. And our employees have consistently stated that Chesterfield County government is a great place to work.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't say it if it weren't true.
Especially because in a situation like that, right, it's anonymous.
It's anonymous.
If you have an axe to grind,
right,
the grinding's good, right?
Exactly.
So it would make sense then that would be the opportunity. And so for that feedback to come back, I mean, that has to mean more to you and folks in your department than anything else, than any sort of, other, because I mean, there are some of these types of awards where it's not arranged that way.
No,
right?
no.
And so I would imagine that means a lot to your shop for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, I would be remiss, given your level of experience, if I didn't ask something along these lines. So benefits, like so many other things in our world, have changed over time. I can imagine there are things that we offer today that you would have never expected would be offered when you were, maybe even starting out in this field or when you came back and all that kind of fun stuff. So how would you say things have changed in terms of the work you all do? And what are some of those things that, I don't know, really stand out about the way things are different now versus maybe the way they used to be?
Yeah, that's another good question, Brad. A lot of things have definitely changed over the years. When I came to the county, the admin assistant was the only employee in the department that had a computer.
Oh, wow.
The rest of us had typewriters with whiteout. But to answer your question, the needs have...
I'm personally just kind of stumbling in my mind's eye about, like, because as a writer, what it would be like to only have the typewriter. Whoa, boy, there's be some long days.
And a bottle of whiteout.
No, thank you. I'm good. I like what I got.
Things have definitely changed. The needs have changed, certainly, for today's employees versus when I started a few decades ago.
Right.
I think most employees have always been very committed to their professions, right, because it's their calling. But now employees are not willing to sacrifice as much of their personal time for the jobs, right? But they are equally committed to their families and their personal interests and the job.
Right.
So work-life balance is much more important nowadays, and I think that's a good thing, along with career development.
Right.
So when we look at the various benefits we offer today that we were not offering back in the day,
we won't define when that day was. I think it was a Tuesday, though.
It was a Tuesday, definitely a Tuesday. But we're looking at various benefits now that include paid parental leave.
Right.
For both the birthing and the non-birthing parent.
Okay.
Community service leave, employees want to be a part of an organization that represents what's good for the community.
Right.
So that's very important. Mental health services being a big focus, especially for employees, a lot of our employees who are first responders and human services professionals.
Right.
Telework opportunities. Certainly couldn't telework back in the day when you only had a typewriter, right?
Yeah, it's kind of tough.
Kind of tough to lug
send that
it
across
back.
the wire.
So yeah, telework is big. Also wellness benefits like on-site workout facilities, which we are fortunate to have, and quiet rooms for de-stressing after a challenging interaction with a customer.
Right.
So all of these are now common practices that we never thought about.
Yeah.
Again, back in the day.
Well, and it's interesting too, Mary, because the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me that, over time things would change. And I'm curious that to get sort of the maybe how the sausage is made. So if let's say there's something that happens in the industry, right? And you start to notice that there are other places that are offering benefit, whatever, right? How does that process work for that to become a benefit that's actually offered? Do you then take that to leadership? How does that process work for something that is maybe under consideration become a reality?
Yeah, so part of it is taking it to leadership, but the other part is finding out if it's important to our employees.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So we do a lot of surveying, and fortunately, our employees, they like that because they've seen over the years that when we ask questions, we're not just asking
to ask,
just
right.
because.
Yeah, right.
We actually want to know what they think, and things come from those surveys. So yeah, we reach out, we benchmark, and then we take it to leadership. Of course, we have to run it by budget to see if it's doable, or maybe not this year, but at some point in the future. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into those things that we offer.
Interesting. All right. Lastly, let me get you out of here on this one. I'm curious if you might share maybe some tidbits or advice to it from your point of view on what makes a good employer. What are some of the do's and don'ts, so to speak, of being a good employer in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. And it may sound a little cliche, but it truly does start with leadership. The only reason we are an award-winning employer and that we have such an engaged and satisfied workforce, in my opinion, is because of our leadership. They understand the importance of taking care of the workforce. Yeah. Many organizations say that employees are our greatest asset, but that's really kind of where it stops. Right. No real substantive actions follow those statements. But in Chesterfield, we're very fortunate to have a board of supervisors and a county administrator who have made real commitments to our workforce, not only in word, but in action. This has demonstrated to our workforce that leadership understands the value of the work that they do every day for our residents. Right. So that's resulted in a workforce that's not only passionate about their chosen profession, but they're also equally passionate about performing those professions for Chesterfield County residents on behalf of Chesterfield County government. Yeah. So that's the key, and I think that's how we get it done.
Yeah, good deal. Well, Mary, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I thank you for the time. I know, I don't feel like there's ever a not busy time for folks in HR, but I very much appreciate you spending some of that busy time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. All right. Make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's @ChesterfieldVA. On Instagram, it's Chesterfield Virginia, one word. And on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Now, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that your shows are sold. And if you're so inclined to give us a rating and review, we greatly appreciate that. As always, the video version of our show is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. That's also where you can submit feedback anytime, make some suggestions, or just reach out to us. You can watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on weekends at noon. That is Comcast Channel 98, Verizon Channel 28. Lastly, check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us to find out a number of other ways to connect with Chesterfield County. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my executive producer, Teresa, Bonifas, and all the good folks from Constituent Media Services for all they do. And my thanks to you for joining us today. So from all of us here in Chesterfield, thanks again for making us a part of your day. We'll see you again soon. Take good care.
From blogs to podcasts.
And I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again.
Weekly video segments and newsletters.
Social media, the latest community news.
And this is your Chesterfield News Minute for September 19th.
How to get in touch, and everything in between. If you want to know about Chesterfield County, our Connect With Us webpage has you covered. Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. Connect with us, your source for all things Chesterfield.